So, back to keynote speaker number 1, Birgit Valla. Birgit Valla. Birgit Valla is a Norwegian psychologist and a lady who put down a lot of work to implement feedback-informed treatment in Stange. Welcome up on stage.
Thank you. And thank you so much for giving me the honor of giving this opening keynote at the Achieving Clinical Excellence conference, the third one in Östersund, Sweden. And congratulations all of you for being here. My name is Birgit Valla. I am the leader of a community-based mental health service in the municipality of Stange, Norway. But I'm not giving this keynote on my own. I have almost my entire staff with me, and if it were not for them, I would have nothing worthwhile talking about. So I'm ever grateful to you guys, and you can raise your hands so they can see who you are. Look at them. And if you have questions after my speech, which you probably will, you can go talk to them in the break, and I'll try not to embarrass you too much. Okay. So, why have we put 40 people on a bus from Stange to come to Östersund, to come to this conference? We arrange conferences all the time, everywhere. So, why do we spend so much money, resources going to this one? Why do we need the ACE conference at all? So let me check my notes on this. Because this conference focuses solely on becoming better. It's not about programs, it's not about methods, it's not about diagnosis, it's not about figuring out some sort of problem that people have. It's about achieving clinical excellence and getting better in our field. And that is what makes it the most important conference you can go to in the field of mental health. So congratulations on that choice. Our field is in desperate need of improvement. In desperate need. Despite an enormous effort that have been made in coming up with ever new diagnoses, how to do assessments, we have more methods than we can count. Our field has not become more effective in the past 50 or even 100 years. And this is a problem that we should take very seriously. And we also know that clinicians are not very good at judging who they are helping and who they are not. So this is the most depressing part of my talk, and it will get better, so just hang in. This fact was actually quite comforting to me, because I graduated as a young psychologist from the University of Trondheim in 2005, and I got some feedback early on from the people I were going to help that I was not being helpful, which sort of came as a shock because I thought I was being helpful, and I got feedback from my supervisor that I was, but the clients didn't think so. And I was very lucky. The first place that I worked, they used FIT, they used the ORS, SRS, so I got early on a lot of feedback of my effectiveness. And I was a bit disappointed, to tell you the truth. This was not what my training has promised me, and I was thinking, isn't it supposed to be better than this? And then I started reading all this research, and the fact that it wasn't just me that there was something wrong with, and I should go try to find another profession. It was actually a problem with the whole field. So I started asking people at the end of a treatment. At that time, I worked with families and children in a hospital setting, and I started asking the families, what have helped you? What was it that we did that helped you? And what they said was not what I thought, because I thought it was this clever intervention that we have done, or the insight from the assessments, or something very complicated stuff we had done. But it was much more simple, and it had much more to do with their ordinary life. Often it had nothing to do with me. So, and after doing this for some years, I realized that we were focusing our efforts on a lot of wrong things. And this is also called the streetlight effect. And you've probably seen this picture of a drunk searching for something under a streetlight. And a policeman comes by and he asks the drunk, what are you doing? What are you looking for? And the drunk says, I'm looking for my keys. And the policeman starts to help him look for the keys, and they both look for the keys. But they can't find the keys, and the policeman says, are you sure you lost them here? And the drunk says, oh no, I lost them in the park. But this is where the light is. So that's why I'm looking here. And I did that. So I stuck to it. I tried to make it work. I tried to do all these things that the system demanded of me. But I had this feeling that it was wrong. But I stuck to it. I worked where the light shone brightest. And I did that for several years. And then I had this idea. Because after having talked to all these people, I felt that we were doing too much of things that were not important to people. It didn't matter to them. And we were doing too little of things that were very important to people. And we were wasting people's time. And we were wasting our time with doing stuff that was not helping people, not getting them better, and it really didn't matter to them. So I had this idea, and this was back in 2009. I thought, what if we built a mental health service based on, number one, what matters to people? What do they want? What are their needs? And we have to ask them, and they have to be able to tell us in their own words. So we have to talk to them in their language. So that's number one, ask them what's important to you, what do you need, and then we help them. We use our knowledge and we help them, and then we get feedback, continuously feedback, and then we adjust our service, and if it works, we continue, and if it doesn't work, we stop. And I thought, if we built a service this way, what would it look like? And I didn't know. So I didn't know what that would look like. But I was pretty sure it wouldn't look like the environment I was in at the time. The problem was I had no way of testing this idea until a position opened up in Stangehjelpa municipality. They were hiring a psychologist to help them build a service for families and children with mental health and family issues. So I applied there, and we got to work. And we built this service from scratch. So we started on this quest. It was in 2010. We opened our doors to make the best mental health service in the world. That was our goal. So we were very few. We only started with preschool children. We were only 2.5 positions, a few more people. And we said to the inhabitants in Stange, do you have a problem? Come see us, we'll try to help you and figure things out. There were no lists of intervention programs, and I promised myself when I took that job, I'm not going to start a single intervention program, 3-letter method, before asking the inhabitants, is this what you want? Is this what you need? So we started with the open door, do you have a problem, come talk to us. And families came, and I remember that very first family. We have this ridiculously simple referral system to our service. It's just a piece of paper with some name and age and address, and then it just says, what do you need help with? And then there's some lines. And this first family, there were so many children. There were so many problems. There were so many people having tried to help them before. And I was thinking, what the heck are we going to do that's going to make a difference? But we had to try. And we used FIT from the first family. So we talked to them, and we got feedback. Is it helping? Is it not? And if it were, we did more of that, and we adjusted, and we did a lot of things that did not help. But we always thought, how can we be better? How can we help these families in a better way? And we stuck to that idea. And because this was a new idea, we really had to prove our existence. We had to prove that this was a good idea, doing it like this. Simply opening the door, saying, how can I help you? This was in 2010. Now we are a large service. There's 40 people of us helping children, adolescents, adults, senior citizens with all types of mental health problems and substance abuse. And we are still on this journey, this quest, figuring out how can we be better, how can we help people in a better way and improve our results. We're called Stangehjelpa, which is directly translated into English as the Stangehjelp, which is a name that we made together with the inhabitants. They wanted a name that they could relate to, that was a common name for them, and that's why we're called Stangehjelpa. We work together with schools, kindergartens, home for the elderly, GPs, child protection services, you name it, whoever is also in contact with the families. We apply FIT to all of them, and we practice deliberately every single week to get better. So, 5 years ago, I was at the ACE conference in Amsterdam. And I did this speech, this talk on FIT and deliberate practice. We've only been doing it for 3 years at the time. And after my talk, the distinguished K. Anders Eriksson, who's sitting here, talked to me, and he asked me, gave me some feedback on my talk, and he asked me, have you learned anything? And I wasn't sure. Because in other domains, they have this there's this knowledge, this accumulated knowledge that they can agree upon how to play the piano, how to play chess, how to solve an equation. There's some knowledge that they can agree upon. And is there such a knowledge in our field? And I wasn't sure, because I felt we couldn't agree on anything. And had we learned anything from this process? By the way, this process of opening the doors, what you need help for, getting feedback, later on I learned, when I've done some training as a leader, that this is what's called a service design. So every other field knows this, that this is how you should design a service. You ask the target group what you need, and then you start working, and you get feedback, and you develop the service that way. And then you learn something about what they need. So you build on the knowledge that you gain. You don't invent something beforehand to give to people. You detect what you need to do as you go along. So back to Eriksson and our talk. Have you learned anything? I don't know. I didn't know if we'd learned anything. Now, 5 years later, I think we have learned something. And I'm going to talk to you about that in a little bit. Because in many fields, at some point in time, there is provided knowledge that shifts the direction. It creates a paradigm shift, it makes you think differently, and it makes you take a leap towards something better, towards achieving better results. And that was exactly what happened in the sport of ski jump. We talked a lot about skis today, so here's some more about skis. Ski jump, that happened in the 1980s. Something happened that would change the sport forever. Because before the 1980s, skis pointed straight forward. Let me show you a picture. Can you see it? Okay, so these are the style. From the very first ski jumping competition, it was held in Norway in the late 19th century. It's on top, they jumped like this. Didn't go very far, of course. But the skis pointed straight forward. One of my favorites is the Kongsberg Kneck. You can see it there. You also have the rhythmic arm flaps. So that's nice. Okay. But the skis pointed straight ahead, and they were very concerned about style, let me tell you. But then in the 1980s entered a small Swede, red-haired Swede. He even had a stutter. And he was called Jan Boklöv, and he entered the World Championship, debuting in 1985. It did not go well. He ended up far behind his competitors. But he didn't give up. He started experimenting. And what he found out, because he realized, after all, the most important thing in ski jumping is going furthest down the slope. The longest. That's the number one. And he found out that if he split his skis, then he could exploit the updraft that would give him, and he would go farther. And it looks like this. Okay. So doing it this way, he started to jump farther and farther than his competitors. But he completely broke with the traditional style. And this new style created chaos among the referees when they were going to give out the points for style, because it did not look good. I talked to Gunnar Lindfeldt about this early this morning, and he said, "Det såg hemskt ut." It did not look good. So they tried to punish him. Although he jumped farther and farther, they wanted to punish him for everything he did that broke with the tradition at the time. But since he jumped so far, then they had to take him seriously. So they tried to fight him. And the chairman of the National the National Ski Association's ski jumping committee even tried to fire a judge that gave him 18 out of 20 in style. And he said that Boklöv should never get more than 17 points, even at his best. So, and some also said that it was dangerous to jump like that. But actually now we know that it has made the sport safer. So Boklöv flew further and further, and after a while even the judges had to be impressed, and more ski jumpers followed, and they adopted his style, and the V-style won. And now that is what they do, and they have refined and built on this way of jumping, all the while the skis are pointing out. So, okay. In Stangehjelpa, Let me get that picture out of the way. In Stangehjelpa, we jump farther. We go longer. How can I say that? What are good results in the field of mental health? In ski jump, it's more easy. You can measure how far do you go, and the longest, the better. In mental health, it's not so easy. What is a good result? And I think since we're so unsure about that, that's also why we seem to be so unable to make progress. Because results are not so easily defined in our field. So when we talk about results in Stange, we talk about improving people's quality of life, their well-being, improving people's well-being, not symptom reduction, but well-being. How can we help people live better lives the way they value it themselves? Okay? So we measure this by using the ORS. The ORS is the best measurement tool we have that is simple enough to use on everybody and valid enough to be meaningful in our planning and making improvements for ourselves as a therapist and for the service as a whole. But it's such a simple tool that most experts can't seem to wrap their head around it. I mean, come on, it's just 4 lines on a sheet of paper. Now it's an iPad. Very simple. It's just too easy for many experts to get this. But actually, it's the most important tool that we have, at least in Stange, on getting feedback on well-being, which is our main goal, and that's the results that count in our service. Because we have lost our way and our heads in all these symptom checklists. We assess people from here to eternity, and that's not important to people. It's not what they want. We're wasting people's time. So what we should be concerned about are people's well-being as they themselves value it. So I usually say in Stangehjelpa, we sell quality of life. That is our product. And the better we are at that, the better are our results. It's that simple. Another type of results is return on investment. You remember I talked about when I worked in the hospital system, I felt that we were wasting so much time, our time, resources, and people's time on things that were not important. This is not good value for money. It's bad value for money. You need to be doing things that gives you a good value for money, that actually creates some value. And in our service, that means well-being, people's well-being. So the amount of effort you put in should have to justify what you get out. So if you put in a lot of effort, you need to get a lot of well-being out in the other end. Do you follow? Okay, so that's another type of result. How is our return on investment? So that's something we also look at. So there's 2 types of results. It's quality of life or well-being, and then there's return on investment. So how can I say that we jump further? We count what matters. We have increased the amount of people that we are able to help by 90%. After working in this service design way, we have increased the amount of people we are able to help by 90% with only a 15% increase in resources. Now think about that. If you could increase the amount of people you help with 90%, wouldn't you do that? Forget about waiting lists. Forget about shutting the door and leaving people out. And let me remind you that in our service, everyone is welcome. Everyone. Whatever problem, they're welcome. We're a bit concerned about that, but it's going quite well. A lot, because you get, after a while, people know about you, and they know that you can deliver something. You deliver well-being. So many people want that. But then you have to be effective, because you can't help. You can't have open doors if you spend a lot of time on something that is not valuable. So we have increased our effectiveness with 90%. We're helping 90% more people, and this is good value for money. So we're helping a lot more people now than before. We accept everyone, whatever problem, and there is no waiting lists. And because our return on investment is so high, because how do we know that we're actually helping them? We're just not just putting them through the system. It actually means, since we can help so many, we're actually also helping them getting better. Because what happens if people don't get better? One, they leave, if you're lucky. Two, they stay forever. And we just continue to work with them without improvement, and we spend a lot of resources doing things with people that is not helpful. So luckily in our service, because we measure all the time, we know that we're actually helping people so that they can leave us when they don't need us anymore. Not all of them. Just to say that. We're not able to help all of them because no one are, okay? But we have a very good percentage success rate, as it is called. Our effect, as measured by the ORS, has been steadily improving for the past years. It's very exciting looking at this because you never know if this is going to happen when you practice. So far this year, we have over 70% success rate, and it has been climbing the past 3 years. So that's very, very exciting to see. And that means we're seeing the results of our deliberate practice that we've been doing for many years. Okay, so we help more people better in less amount of time. We simply jump farther. So we have been very open about our service, and we show to everyone what we're doing, and more people come in. They visit us from all around the country. Last year we had 250 people from different municipalities in Norway coming to see us. And there is a huge interest in FIT in Norway. Now more than 70 municipalities have started using FIT. And the ORS and the SRS. But is FIT itself enough to make your service better? No, it definitely is not. FIT is about feedback. It informs you on how you're doing, but it's not doing anything for you. Of course, everything you do has some effect. So everything you do has some effect, also FIT. But it's not an intervention. FIT is not an intervention that in itself will make you more effective. FIT is about feedback. It will tell you how you're doing, and then you have to figure out what you're going to do with that feedback. And then you have to start making improvements, and that's what's going to make you better, not FIT. Okay, and this is kind of important to me because people want to learn FIT and think that, oh, that will make us better, but it won't. So if you want to make a better service, here are some advice from us in Stange on how to do that. And I've made 3 steps because that's all you can remember. So there's 3 steps on how to get better. Number 1, find out, and this is important, so don't forget this. Number 1, find out what kind of results you want. You have to start with the end in mind. Where do we want to go? Because you get the results that you want. If you want one kind of results and start paying attention to those, that's what you're going to get. And many people skip this point. They just start practicing anything, but they don't know where they want to go. So you have to know what kind of results matters to us. But this is very hard because this is not what the system demands. Remember when I talked about results in Stangehjelpa, quality of life, well-being, return on investment? Okay, the system wants other types of results. The system wants to know how many people are being diagnosed, how many sessions per day have you had, amount of service delivered, treatment plans being written, services being delivered by the right professional with the right degree, and so on. This is what is being asked. If that's what you are occupied with, that's what you're going to get. If this is what you count, this is what you're going to get. Okay? But if you want something else, that is what you, then you know what to practice. And I mean, what matters most? Style or jumping the longest? That's what you have to figure out. So the system demands one kind of results, but they are not what matters to the people. The people, and we prove this through our service design. People don't, they're not concerned about that. It doesn't matter to them, these things. They want to have a better life. They want better well-being. And this is one of my staff, Rita. She's sitting there. She's doing a master's degree where she's interviewing people in our service and some other services that are doing fit on how is it. And what they are saying is that when they come to us, we have a completely different perspective from the first session. Our values, our intentions are simply different. It's a different paradigm coming to us. Because we know where we want to go. So you have to think about this. I'm not going to tell you do this, or you have to think about what kind of results do you want. That's all I advise you to do. Because you cannot practice deliberately if you don't know what you're practicing for. And if you don't know where you want to end up, there's a big chance you'll just start practicing anything. And in our field, where we are so obsessed with methods, there's a big chance you're going to start practicing methods. You start deliberately practicing methods, and you think that will make you better, but I'll promise you it will get you nowhere. Okay, so that was number 1. Start with the end in mind, know where you want to go. Number 2, confront the brutal facts. That's what I called it. It's about feedback. And feedback can be brutal, especially in our field. That's why we're so reluctant to look at it. So I was sitting on the bus, and a man sits next to me. He's a psychologist. I know him from before, and we start chatting. And he was asking, how are you doing in Stange? And he was working within the hospital system in an outpatient clinic. And I was, because this is how my mind works, so I said, oh yeah, it's going good, but we have all these problems and we can't help everyone and there are things we need to improve. And so I was very much focused on where we should be better, because that's what I think about all the time. And I think he was thinking, oh, you sure have problems. But, and then he said, oh, I think I'm helping all of my clients. And I looked at him and I said, wow, that is great. Good for you. And I was thinking in my mind, you are delusional. And there's medication for this kinds of stuff. So, how are we going to get better if we think we're so damn good in the first place? So we need to take a hard look at ourselves, because no one helps everyone they meet. We know this. The problem is we don't know who we help and who we're not helpful to, which the man on the bus so easily could explain to me. So we have to create a climate where the truth is okay and it is not ignored. So you have the end in mind, you know where you want, so what is preventing you from getting there? You have to look at what you're not doing right. What are your errors? That's what you need to be focused on. Where do you need to get better? And we do this is about feedback, because in order to know this, you have to ask people. And getting feedback in our field is hard. It's a lot more hard than in sports or music or many other domains, because it's the people that we're helping that's going to provide this feedback for us. And that's why we spend so much time training people simply in getting the feedback. That's why we do fit trainings and how do you use the ORS and the SRS or other types of feedback tools. It's a skill to get feedback from people. It's not easy. And Rita has also asked people how this is. And they say it's hard to give you feedback. They have all kinds of thoughts about what if I say this, what kind of consequences will that have? The clients I'm talking about now. So it's up to us. We have to work on ourselves to get the feedback that we need in order to get better. Okay? And this is a skill you have to learn. But this is not the skill that will actually make you better. It's the skill that will help you get the feedback so that you know what to practice to become better. So this is what you need to do individually as a therapist. Learn how to get this feedback so that you know what to practice. There are other brutal facts in our field. If we started taking them seriously, it would have a huge impact on our success. We know that profession does not matter. We know that methods does not matter. We know that experience does not matter. We know that the diagnoses are not valid and the drugs don't work. At least not most of the time, and in the long run they can be quite harmful. We know these things, yet we have built an entire system based as if these things were the most important. And if you think about that, it is just madness. So we are taking these facts very seriously, and that is what makes us jump so much further. We're confronting the brutal facts. But remember, never, ever, ever lose faith. You have to keep the faith. If you lose the faith, you lose. Because when we started off, and still, we don't know what things are going to look like. We're detecting them as we go along. But we have faith that there is something better. And we have taken a leap towards something better, and it is, in a high degree, a leap of faith. So, you know where you want to go, you're confronting the brutal facts now and getting feedback, and now you can start to practice. Don't start to practice before you've done all those two things, okay? So now you can start to practice. And instead of bureaucracy and hierarchy, you need to create a culture of discipline. There has to be discipline in the service, and you can ask my staff all about, you can just be honest with people how it is in our service. It's very strict about these things. There's a lot of freedom in what they can do to help people, but certain things are very strict also. So just to get you an idea on how we do it in Stange, I'm not saying it's the only way to do it, but we've been trying this out now for 8 years, and we have some sort of idea on how we can do that. So in order to practice deliberately, you need feedback, you need a coach, and you need a setting where the practice can take place. So we do fit, that's the feedback part, along with the brutal facts we get from research. And then we do supervision. So the whole staff, we do group supervision and individual supervision. So they have their individual supervisor, and we have group supervisors. The difference between group and individual is that group is good when you want to create a common culture. We do this the same way. But the group supervision is often very much about the client. How are we going to do things with the client? The individual supervision is about the therapist, because therapists have a lot of issues too. Let me tell you. Isn't that true? We're all just human, all of us. So there's no difference. So we work with and there has to be a safe environment for the individual supervision, so the therapist can talk about anything that they're struggling with. So we have seen that this individual supervision is very important for the staff in order to improve themselves as a therapist. And then we do skill training for the whole staff together. Every other week, we get together for 1 hour and we do skill training. We practice deliberately because we think that helping people with mental health problem is a team sport, not an individual sport. So we have seen that if we do things together, we can fly a lot further than if we do it one-on-one. So there are some skills that we need to practice together that we all need to be good at. So we pick a skill and then we think about it as a soccer team. They practice some things together and then they have their individual goals. So we come together and we practice together and we pick a skill that we need to get better at. For example, how do we start a first session? How do we talk to people about change? How do we talk to people about non-progress when there's no progress? How do we end a treatment in a good way? So these types of skills that are important for the whole staff. The staff says that when we have evaluated it, it has been important for 2 reasons, for many reasons, but particularly 2 reasons. One is it creates a common culture. So it makes us work in the same way. This is how we do it in our service. And also they say it helps them to go outside their comfort zone. It pushes them outside. It's too hard to do that on your own. So you need a space where you are challenged, where you dare to go and you're pushed to go out of the comfort zone. How we do this practice, you should really talk to the staff about that. They're much better at describing it than I am. So you can talk to them in the breaks if you want to. And then we do role play. No, now I'm getting ahead. When we start with a new skill, we always start with why. We always start with why. Because we have to know, how is this skill important in relation to where we're going? Remember the first step, know where you want to go. So why are we practicing this skill, and how is that skill going to help us get to where we want? Okay. So we use creative methods. Let me see if I have a picture. It's very dark. Okay, I think it will light up. So we do creative methods, and we take this question: how will this skill help us to get us to where we want? And we do. And this is us getting together and working on the why. And then we do the how and the what, and when we are working on the what, we do role play and we practice the sentences. What is it that we are actually saying to people? Because that's what matters in the end. So we share ideas and we practice sentences and we get feedback. We get feedback when we do role play, and we try as much as we can to sit in on each other's sessions just to get feedback. We can videotape and have the supervisors look at the video, and we try to do different things. The thing is that we don't just sit in the office doing therapy. We're out meeting people in the community all over the place. So you can't have a video camera with you everywhere. But we try in every way we can to be seen and to get feedback on how we're doing, what we're saying to people, and so that we can work on what we're saying. There are high expectations in the service. We're never satisfied. We're always wanting to get better. And it's very demanding on the staff. Let me show you some quotes. There was this master's degree that was done. It was done a few years ago, who interviewed some of the staff on how it was to work with deliberate practice in this way. And this is what they said. The process of change that we have been through is extensive. It has not just been easy. At times, it has been pretty tough. I was really worried about low scores in the beginning. I thought it was about me not doing a good job, and I took it very personally. It is still personal, but now I see it as a potential for improving myself. And here's what they say about deliberate practice. I have never worked at a place where I have learned so much and read so much based on the topics that appear when working with the clients. It's not about attending a seminar here and there. This is a more deliberate way of acquiring knowledge. It has to be linked to what you need to get results. And remember, then you know what kind of results you want. We have a focus that nobody can stagnate and nobody are allowed to stay put in their comfort zone. There are big ambitions for the service. We're constantly moving forward and becoming better. When each and every one of us gets better, the whole service gets better and stronger. We have to dare to challenge ourselves and sweat. Think about that. High demands. It is strenuous. We are expected to deliver all the time. But being part of a team that dare to have new thoughts and that wants something is really exciting. I need it or I would grow tired. It's demanding, but then there is that feeling when we experience when we have climbed a mountain top. Then it is all worthwhile. It is incredibly fun to make new discoveries and experience mastery. Isn't that great? Yeah. So, back to Ericsson's question. Have we learned anything? Let me get this up so the light won't go away. I think we have learned something. Our most important lesson is that helping people with mental health problems is not a linear process. It is not a linear process. A linear process is like this. You gather data, that's the assessment in our field. You analyze the data, that's the diagnosis. You formulate the solution, that is the method you want to apply based on the diagnosis. And then you implement the solution and you pray to God it will help. Helping people with mental health problems does not work this way. This is also called the medical model in our field. There's a much better way to help people with mental health problems, and it looks like this. It is called a design process. You gather data, so you get a hang on what's the problem, and you try out solution. And you see, and you get feedback to see if it works or not. And maybe you need some more data on the problem. And then you try and use and you adjust. This is a clever, intelligent way of solving a problem. But it looks like a mess. Ser hemskt ut. Okay, so this is much more effective and you get to the results a lot faster. And this is the way that we work in Stange. This is the design approach. So if you follow it like this, you will design the therapy and develop the service as you go. And it will give you better results. The problem is, in our field, you get very poor points for style when you do it like this. The regulating authorities have tried, our skis are pointing out. They want us to get back in. So but we know that will make us jump a lot shorter if we do that. But our records doesn't look like they're supposed to. We're not counting the right things. And we are being, in a certain degree, punished for that, and we are constantly having to justify that what we're doing are actually a good idea. And some have even said that the way we are working is dangerous. But it's actually a lot safer to work in this way because we get feedback constantly on if what we are doing is helping or not and can adjust accordingly. And that is a lot safer way to work than just going ahead with the linear model. Okay. So, but the fact that we're jumping a lot farther now can be extremely threatening to the system and certain professionals. But doing deliberate practice has this snowball effect. So we are getting further and further away from the rest of the field. And in many other fields, that's an advantage, because then you get ahead of your competitors. But in our fields, it's not an advantage. Quite the contrary, because you need to justify what you're doing all the time. Okay, so one of the most important lessons in order to get better is that we have moved away from the medical model and towards engaging the clients in a design process. And this is what we need. And this is what Daryl Chow writes about, he's sitting up there, in his upcoming book that is most needed for the field, and I'm really looking forward to its coming, where he talks about the engagement model. What we need to do is engage people in their own healing process. And we need to do that from the very start, from the first session. Because another fact in our field is that engagement is one of the most important factors into helping people improve their well-being. So the earlier you can engage people in their own healing process, the better results you're going to get. So when we practice in Stangehjelpa, we have this end in mind. How are we going to engage people? And we adjust the service accordingly. So if more and more services started with this end in mind and wanted to achieve better results in less time with more people and being led by results, not guidelines or old traditions, how can we make the whole field of mental health move forward? How can more and more services take the leap, make us jump longer and fly farther? Is that possible? A movement starts with friendships. Movement starts with friendships. People getting together, making a difference because they believe in something. Not because they know, but because they believe that there is a better way of doing something. And it has become part of their identity. When more and more people join in, new habits are created and new identities spread. And when new identities spread, it can create a momentum, and then social change can begin. So is it possible to start a movement? Is it possible to take a leap? So let me tell you a story, to finish off with a story. I'm from the north of Norway, from a place called Valla, which is also my last name. And there's 2 big farms there, and there's small farms around. And every spring, they had this market where they traded goods and they sold things that they had made on the farms. And on this market day, every year, there was this old man, and he came and he sat on this tree stump and he gave out advice. And he always had the right answer. People could ask him anything and he would know. He would have the right answer. So people got in line and they waited their turn, asked him a question, and he would know. But then there was this little boy. He was not so impressed. He thought he was going to trick the old man and figure out a question that would make him give him the wrong answer. he would design it in a way that the old man had to give him the wrong answer. So his idea was that he got a butterfly between his hands. So he caught a butterfly between his hands. And he was going to say to the old man, I have a butterfly between my hands. Is it dead or is it alive? And if the old man said, it's alive, then he was going to put his thumb down and crush it so that it died. And he was going to say, no, it's dead. And if the old man said, it is dead, then the boy was going to just open his hands and no, it's alive. So whatever the man said, he would be wrong. That was the boy's plan. So the day came, the wise man sat on the tree stump, people got in line, the boy caught the butterfly, and he got in line, waiting eagerly his turn with his clever plan. And then it was finally his turn, and he said to the old man, I have a butterfly here in my hands. Is it dead or is it alive? And the old man looked at the boy and he said, the answer to that question is entirely up to you. Thank you.